Tar Beach by Faith Ringgold. Who is Faith Ringgold? She is a Black history role model. She is an artist. She is an illustrator or a person who creates images for books. She is an author, a person who writes books. And she is a professor, another word for teacher. Faith Ringgold was born in Harlem, New York in 1930. While working as an art teacher in public schools, she began a series of paintings called The American People, which portrayed the civil rights movement from a female perspective. Here's one of the paintings in the series titled The Women's House, painted in 1972. What do all the characters in this painting have in common? Why do you think Ringgold divided the picture into different spaces? Education and art. Ringgold went to college in New York and graduated with her bachelor's degree in fine arts. She later earned her master's degree in art in 1959 and became a professor at the University of California in San Diego. Ringgold was always surrounded by other artists and musicians because she grew up in the Harlem Renaissance, where jazz music and African American art was well known. People like Langston Hughes, who was a poet, Jacob Lawrence, who was also an artist, and Billie Holiday, who was a singer. They were all living nearby. You can also see how these Harlem Renaissance artists influenced Ringgold by looking at the quilt that she created. Civil Rights Era and Ringgold's influence. During the 1930s and the 1960s, America was segregated, which means separated by skin color. It was a challenging time in life because some people were treated differently because of how they looked. People like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Faith Ringgold were activists for civil rights. They had marches and protests and wrote books about how everyone should be treated equally. Books and quilt paintings. During the 1980s, she began a series of quilts that are among her best-known works. She later embarked on a successful career as a children's book author and illustrator. Tar Beach is one of her books that is well known. It was published in 1991. It is all about a little girl and her family living in the midst of the civil rights era. They had been victims of segregation and poverty. However, the little girl in the story uses her creativity and imagination as she explores her neighborhood in fascinating ways. This allows her to have happiness and joy during a tough time. To start the project, go back to the home slide and click on the moving sewing machine. Have fun!